All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's the truth is still straight, minus a few people today, but it's all right because we're going to hold it down. It's Jonathan St. James and it's Jim.
Afternoon, people. What's going on?
All right. Evening, Happy New Year, Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, Easter, whatever day of the year you're listening to this recording. All right. So I want to get into a couple of things real fast. I want to talk about the whole drama with Derrick Jaxn. So for those of you who know about Derrick Jaxn, I don't know where you've been. It's because they've been talking about Derrick Jaxn in Britain. You can look him up, and the BBC has an article about him. So basically, Jim, if you don't mind, would you like to kind of talk about what's going on with Derrick Jaxn?
Okay. Derrick Jaxn has been exposed to having an affair, more than one, outside of his marriage. To be honest with you, we don't know how far back this goes. For him, he's been very guarded with his personal life. It's been very guarded until now. Nobody have really seen any pictures of his wife or knew what she looked like until now. This is more, I won't say it's a coming out party, but this is like, for Derrick Jaxn, under bad pretenses, it's just people just fighting about his life, his personal life now, instead of giving relationship advice. He has been exposed so far by 3 women. They all, I know 2 of them, I'm not sure if all 3 of them, I know 2 of them went to Tasha K, another YouTube personality who exposed them on these allegations. And now it's not really allegations, it's just, have been admitted to they had affairs with these women. And it has been a topic of conversation, not just because of the affairs that he had, but the reply videos that he has given out in responses to these topics and issues that he has. One, by himself, and secondly, which everyone is really focusing on, is the one with him and his wife talking about the process, their healing process from these allegations, and how she feels about it, how he, how Derrick Jaxn, the third person, which now exists to him, feels about it, and the type of replies that people are giving to these videos.
So now I want to just play some of the audio from this. So if you can see in my screen, there's a picture of Derrick Jaxn and his wife. And now I'm just going to play some YouTube audio so you can kind of hear in his own words, because I want to make some comments on it. So I'll play his words and then kind of chime in from there. So hold on one second. Let me just get the audio together.
What's going on, guys? Derrick Jaxn here, and today I am joined by my lovely wife, Danae, and we just wanted to address a couple of things. We understand that some of you may have already heard, maybe not, that this chapter of our marriage is one that was preceded by a marriage that I completely failed. I would say it just started around August, maybe September of last year. But, a lot has been said already about what was the cause and all that other stuff. Some of it is true, some of it is completely false. But the truth is, and I'm saying it here now, is that Derrick Jaxn was involved with other women outside the marriage. For the same way that I appreciate, men and women in this situation need to face consequences. Their actions deserve to be held accountable. Guess what? Derrick Jaxn's no exemption. He's not exempt from that. I'm also not a victim. Nobody made me do this. She didn't make me or push me to do it. The next person didn't make me. No friend influenced me. It don't matter how I was raised or what trauma or whatever. Look, I made decisions. I made a series of decisions. I got to account. There's no excuse or justification. I've already made that bet and have had to lie in it. And now we're finally getting on to the other side personally in our own healing, in our own marital oneness. And now this is being made public to you guys. So we're bringing that forth to you guys to let you know where we're at with that. Did you want to say anything?
So now I'm going to just stop the video there, the audio rather. And so some issues that I had with what he was talking about, and first and foremost that I had is, one, he sounds very hypocritical to me because you are now addressing it, right? And it's only because you got caught out there that you're addressing what happened. So that's the issue that I have with him, because if this was about God and spirituality and this and that, when it happened, you should have came out and volunteered the information. It should have never been, let's do some PR campaign because now I'm caught and it's controversial, and now you want to sort of keep your book sales. You want your followers to keep following you. You should have upfront came out with it when it happened. If you were so sincere about what happened with your wife, then you should have came out and spoke about it when it happened, when it was discovered, when she found out, when she left, or whatever she did, whatever her reaction was to what you did. You should have got up and admitted it and did it then, not now, because it's very disingenuous, because you got caught. So you got caught and now you're like, okay, I'm coming clean now. But if you're this Christian and you're this guy that was so eager to help women and empower them and encourage them that they can do anything they want to in life, then you should have been honest and upfront, because you had no problem talking about Kevin Samuels or this person or that person and bashing what they were saying. So now when it comes to you, you're camera shy now. So you can't say anything about yourself. Everything is about everyone else. But when it comes to yourself, you didn't volunteer any information. So that's the biggest problem that I have with Derrick Jaxn, is because he only came out because he got busted. And I have a problem with that, because that tells me you're a big phony, because you're this guy talking about God this and God that. And yet, when everything came to fruition, you didn't have enough guts to come out and confess your sins. So that's first and foremost my big issue with Derrick Jaxn. So what do you think about that, Jim?
He gave his whole persona to me was always fishy. I just don't get why I can get why he became popular, but I just don't get the level of popularity that he got. It just seems weird, he's giving all these great relationship advice. He's giving, women mostly what they want to hear. I believe that he probably led some women astray because they took it too literal. I don't think he was temperamental in his advice giving. And sometimes, it could be, too leaning to one side. But the way he portrayed himself was a person, who wouldn't do it, or who hasn't done it and wouldn't do it, or even wouldn't think about doing it. And come to find out, he's just, it was nothing like what he said. He was the guy. If you took his advice, he was warning women about him. This is the guy you need to look out for. And you know what? If he would have said, I was that dude, or I'm that dude, so I know what I'm talking about, I think it would have led more to his credibility now. But, he didn't mention, he just gave off this holier than thou persona. He's there, like, for man treat you like, and it's not saying that he's saying that he does it, but, judging from coming from, how he's speaking in, condescending tone, is that he gave the advice based upon a generality of what it should be, but he didn't give advice on what it is. So he can't really, he gives the impression of this is how it should be, but he never really gave advice on how it is and how you should really, compensate for that. Or, if the woman, if the individual needs to do something. He didn't focus on the self. He focused more on the partner, which I think is incorrect. He hardly gave any really true self-reflective views for the person receiving the advice to follow. It was just more about the other partner.
So now I wanted to kind of let the wife talk a little bit and hear what she sort of had to say, and then kind of get back to it. Hold on 1 second here.
Yes, so I do want to just add that I agree with what he just said. There is no justification for bringing other women into our marriage on any level. When I found out about it, I left. I did not hesitate or waste time to do so. And I stayed gone no matter how many many times he came, I stayed gone and stood firm on I am not coming back. And I did not come back until I seen a shift and a change in his mentality. So there's nothing out there right now that is information that I don't already know about or haven't known about. And so this is not something that is new. We have moved forward from it. We have gotten counsel for it and continue to do so. He is still continuing to pursue God, continuing to seek guidance and wise counsel from men of God. So today, where I'm at is at peace, and I proudly stand by his side, and I have no hesitation, I have no hurt, no shame about that. We have already turned a new chapter in this story. We are continuing to move forward, and we are just now sharing that with you. I forgave him, and most importantly, God has first forgiven him, and I also forgive the others as well. And with that, we are free and moving forward. So that's all I have.
All right. So I wanted to stop it there and talk about it. So that's why I go back to saying that through all that, he should have talked about it when it first happened. So if you listen to it, it sounds like it happened not recently, this went down. So if you know all this went down months ago or a year, whatever, whenever she found out, if you're this person that has all these followers that are buying your books, watching your videos and so forth, you should have been upfront with it then. It just seems so fake and phony that now, because people are blowing your spot up, that now you have to come clean. So to me, that's where he gets a big phony on my thoughts, because you're some dude that you claim that you're this and you're that, and black men don't cheat and blah, blah, blah. But when you're caught up in it, you stay silent as long as you could. And now all of a sudden, because you can't stay quiet anymore, now you're upfront and out in the open about it. So that was my issue. My second issue that I had with him was his third person thing. Dude, what the hell is Derrick Jaxn? It's me, it's I, it's my, it's not, you're not The Rock, man. This is not WWE where you're like, Derrick Jaxn says, know your role and shut your mouth. This is outrageous, man. It's just ridiculous. It seems very arrogant to me. It makes your message even more phony, because who refers to them in the third person? Dude, you're not an athlete. You're a human being. You're supposed to be a Christian, allegedly. But, you're supposed to be all these things. And you're coming out here talking about Derrick Jaxn this and Derrick Jaxn that. Man, you've been smelling your dirty drawers and liking this funk. And I have a problem with that. So, am I wrong, Jim? Like, am I off base?
Definitely, you're not. The whole third person thing is for persona purposes for me. Like what you said, wrestler does it for The Rock. It to me, this all this is showing to me when he did that third person. This is all entertainment to him. This is entertainment value and a way to keep onto his brand or whatever brand he has left or whatever. This is something like, this is like something for him just to sell whatever he's peddling, his shirts, his books, his all that stuff. It's just for him to peddle. And for me, for different things, you're allowed to do it. For advice you're giving to, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. This is not something that you should turn on and off at given times. And he did that. He turned it off and on at given times when it suited him. And that's selfish, insincere, inconsiderate. And I always knew something was off about him with his advice. I never liked him. Every time he gave advice, he's in the car. Your studio is a car. To me, that's like the biggest red flag. The second red flag people should notice was the car seat in the back. Like, you guys didn't notice that? For him, it's just like he got away, and he thought he was going to get away with people not paying attention because he got away with it for so long. But when you anger or rub a certain group amount of people the wrong way, which he did, and he didn't really care because, you know, he, in the third person, you're arrogant, and he is arrogant. He thought he was going to continue on. He thought he was going to continue on with this. Nobody, you know, nobody's going to be the wiser. You know, my wife and I went through this already, but which is technically not true because the third accuser, she's recent, I think from last year or a year and a half ago. So I'm not sure how long she supposedly got past it. I don't think she got past this third woman that came out who got pregnant by him. I don't think she even knew that. So, I mean, for what they're spitting, for what they're portraying now, I think that part of that interview is also disingenuous at best because I know she had to know something was up recently.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, definitely. You know, then it goes to that Christianity business that they got going on, and part of that weird church that they kind of showed in a video where the guy was saying that the woman had demons in her vagina and in her mouth because she was performing like oral sex or something. It was just some weird, bizarre thing. And if you want to watch that video, you can check it out on YouTube. It's under like Derrick Jaxn cult or something like that. And it's very, very, very bizarre. I mean, you know, I'm a spiritual person and I believe there's a lot of supernatural things that do happen in this world. But to that extent, you know, there was even one video where a woman was like, "Oh, we're here to kill you," to the pastor. And, you know, he does something and she starts screaming, and it's very theatrical. You know, it's very odd. And so there's just a lot of things going on with them. If you go to her Instagram page, you'll see a lot of, you know, she's very religious with her posts and things like that. So, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, going to that person you're talking about, I don't, you know, these are alleged, of course, to what actually happened because he hasn't been specific. The women have been a lot more specific than he has. And the one that Jim is talking about that says she was pregnant is she's a surgeon. And
yes.
I think she's 32 years old, and she didn't want any children. She got pregnant and she confronted him about it, and she wanted to have an abortion. He was like, "Oh, well, don't do it. You know, let me think about it," or something like that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she wanted no parts of it. And then even in the video, one of the videos that he records, she says that he was in front of her where she lived. And she pointed out, "Oh, that's my apartment or house," or the thing she called it. She said, "That's my house right there. There's my balcony and everything." So it's very interesting. We'll see what happens with him. You know, who knows?
He's done.
Yeah. Well, you never know. You know, people are weird. You know, sometimes people rise from the ashes. So with him, you can, you know, they call those kind of guys panda bears. So we'll see what happens to the big panda bear, because he's a big dude.
Yeah, he is.
So we'll see what happens there. All right, folks, that's enough of that. So we're going to get into the relationship portion of the show, and today's topic is called "Toys R Us Kids. Are men and women really grown?" Okay. So I'm going to play this clip here, and this is going to sort of be a segue into what we're talking about. So basically, I want to start off by saying I watched an episode of Iyanla Vanzant Fix My Life with Shay Johnson. And for those of you who don't know who Shay Johnson is, she is one of the contestants that was on Flavor of Love and a whole bunch of other crap that she was on. And she went on this show. She, you know, she was having issues with her family, and went on Iyanla Vanzant. And I wanted to play what happened on there because it's very interesting. And I wanted to start the show off with this segment. Now, the the audio you're going to hear in the background is her mom, and you'll get an understanding of what I wanted to refer to. So I'm going to play the audio and then come back to it. All right, here it is.
Parent adult children now, when the necessary spiritual deposits were not made during their childhood.
I think because I didn't express my love for my children, there may be a slight distance.
Why can't you mix it up? It's not going to be easy, but I'm here. If we can't work this out, it's going to trickle down. It's like my children. This moment is critical for our family.
This is the story of 3 adult children who were raised by a determined mother, not a mom. This is a story of spiritual bankruptcy and the work required to balance not just the family, but also the individual accounts.
You came to my process.
I am Yamla Van Zandt, and I am here to help you do your work.
That's the intro. So I just want to sort of give you some background information to what the show was about. And this is the part that I want you to hear. So here it is when the mom comes in.
With her mother, Miss Sandra, I realized that the first step in the healing process for this family is to speak to the family matriarch, woman to woman, mother to mother, grandmother to grandmother.
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So I'm just gonna walk you over to where you're gonna be meeting with the Yama.
All right.
Before you all start, you're gonna see this mirror. Okay?
Here's the part.
I have asked Miss Sandra to look into this mirror because often in our relationships, we have an inaccurate or distorted view of ourselves.
State what you see when you look in the mirror. I see a powerful Black woman. Miss Sandra.
Okay, I wanted to stop that there. Okay, so why did I play that specific part of the video? And the reason why I played that is because Ayanla asked of her something specific. Well, not Ayanla, but her, I don't know what the person's name is. I forgot offhand. But she asked her a specific question, and that was, what did you see in the mirror? Now, Jim, did you hear what she said?
Well, I mean, why she did it, or what?
What did she say? What was her response when she asked her, what did she see?
Black woman.
Okay, yeah. So she said she saw a strong Black woman. So she asked Shay the same thing further down in the show. Yeah. And Shay gave all these magnificent qualities of herself. Yes. Now, here's the funny part. This is the twist for those of you who have never seen the show. The mirror on the wall is distorted. You heard distorted. So it means that what you should be seeing is some weird portion of your reflection in this mirror. It's sort of like a funhouse mirror where the image is not normal. So your face is stretched, is squeezed, and on one view, it's not perpendicular to your face. Depending on how you're moving, it's the shape and look of your face shifts. So for Shay and Shay's mom to both say, "Oh, I see a strong person, beautiful, and this and that," that showed a disconnect to reality they had, because they shouldn't have saw that at all. She asked, "What did you see in the mirror?" So they ignored the real things that they saw for what they thought they should say, and which is they thought that they should talk well of themselves. They thought they should compliment themselves, and that's what they did. So that's where the problem came about, when they decided to asked what they saw. And that's the purpose of this conversation today, because we talked about Parents Just Understand recently. And this is sort of what the show is about. And basically the kids to the parents, they just missed out on this dialogue. I believe their parents separated. I'm not sure how old they were. I can't remember all the way back. Do you remember that, Jim?
No, I don't. Honestly, I was mostly focused on the different aspects of the mother and relationship with Shay than with the two brothers, and how she viewed it, how the mother viewed it, and how the kids viewed it. I was mostly focused on that because it was just, it was distorted. It was crazy. That's what I'm mostly focused on. So I didn't really get the gist of when her parents separated, their parents separated. I really it was there, but it was the son that glossed over through the other stuff that what I was focused on.
So the reason why I wanted to use this particular show, because it's indicative of all of our lives. So of course, at some point in their parents' relationship, they separated. I'm trying to remember the backstory because I watched this quite a while ago. I should have wrote it down. But whatever the issue was, I think the father was in the military or something like that. And then they just ended up not working out from there, and they broke up. And as a result, the mom took on this tougher than life persona in which she was very encouraging in terms of them doing for themselves, working hard, making a good life for themselves, but not promoting nurture and love. And as a result of that, the kids suffered because they had a mother at home, but the mother didn't love them. She didn't take interest in them personally, and she didn't comfort them and encourage them when they needed comfort and encouragement. And then they had a father that didn't live with them, but he was encouraging and nurturing and loving. So they were very confused because they were like, we need our mother. Our mother's right here, and our father's not here, and he's doing the things we need from you. So the whole purpose of this discussion is really to talk about adults and how our growth in life are stagnant because we haven't been raised properly by our parents. So when I say, are men and women really grown? That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's sort of a piggybacking on the parents just doesn't understand conversation. So I really wanted to go back to that because I got a lot of feedback based on that show. So I wanted to talk about that. So basically, we grow, we age, but we don't often mature as in the manner that we need to change and grow and take on things that makes us productive men and women for relationships. And we find that marriage is not really happening as often as it should. Divorce is happening a lot. There's misconceptions about what relationships should look like, from men to women, women to men. And a lot of this has to do with maturity. So that's the whole point of, are men and women really grown? Are we really mature? Are we really suitable for relationships? And on average, I'm going to say probably not. So at least half of us are not suitable for relationships. We're not grown. We're not grown enough. And I'll hold there. And Jim, if you had anything to add, I'll let you add and then move from there.
It's a whole thing of suitable. But yeah, I wanted to mention a comment of a prior discussion that we have with Mirror, and how we view ourselves in the mirror. And that first part that you played pertained to that. And from that perception or misperception, if you want to, it really shaped how you as a person treat other people. And you may think that it's the correct way because of your own, what you see in the mirror yourself, and not necessarily pertain to say how the person is affected by what you're giving them. So I mean, that mirror from, I think it was episode 2 or 3. It was further down, that earlier on. I think that played a part into this conversation as well, because from that main perception of yourself, you know, you will think that you are portraying the right persona or right attitude to your children. And unfortunately, you know, that's not the case. And you know, the whole perception, you know, that you know, that you have to really look at yourself deeply, or, you know, are you looking at the mirror correctly, or, you know, is your mirror too dirty and you seeing what you want to see? So, and from that, you know, it stems down further, you know, to how you treat your children, how you think the world views you when it's probably not, but probably doesn't, and how do you react to the world when it doesn't agree with your view. And all that was really portrayed in that episode, to be honest with you. And
yeah, it was.
And you know, it's a bad cycle. It's a bad cycle, and it takes a person with a lot of strength and maturity to break it, for realize it on your own. Because, you know, other people can tell you, but you're not gonna listen to a person that does not view what you see in the mirror. And that is the grand illusion that people will live by, that grand illusion of what they see in the mirror, and it trickles down. So it's tough. It's tough for people to accept that type of advice, especially at their age, because they're really done convinced themselves already. That's how they are.
So what I wanted to add to that is, you know, it's interesting that we're talking about mirrors, and I think there's a perfect illustration to that. And you look on social media, you see a lot of people, especially women and teenage girls, they love taking pictures in the mirror, selfies and stuff like that. And the one thing that they seem to never see is what? The nastiness that's in the mirrors, the filthy toothpaste that splats on, you know, it's disgusting. So you'll see all these women and girls, they're taking these photos and their mirrors need to be clean, and they don't notice that. Or the bathroom is dirty, the bathroom has junk in the background, and or the bedroom is filthy. Like, you can look in the background and it's like clothes all over the place and not put away, and there's a messy bedroom. And it's just interesting that people can look into a mirror and see nothing. And that's the whole point of this discussion, is that most of us don't see maturity or lack thereof when it's not there. And it's a big problem, because it rears its ugly head when you get into relationships. So your lack of maturity will cause you to always be in breakups, never get married, get divorced for petty things. And that's a big problem. That's a very big problem in relationships, where you can't function, and you have to be fit to function, get along, both men and women, because if a woman is cooperative and a man is not, it's going to lead to trouble. And if a man is cooperative and a woman is not, depending on how determined a man is to find his happiness, it won't work out. Because let's be honest, there's just some people out there, they'll just take any old thing from people. Abuse, you know, mental, physical. There's an element of those people that'll stay no matter what. But then you have every other person out there that's like, I'm not taking that crap. And it's very important. The first thing that I encourage everyone that wants a meaningful relationship, and whether it's marriage or whatever you're trying to do, is therapy. Even if you're married or you're in a serious relationship, you should get that, because you should actually want to learn about yourself. The problem with the average person out there is they're not as grown as their age dictates, and you can see it in a lot of people. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump is in his 70s, but there's a level of maturity that he's lacking at times. And so you would think a person at 70, whatever he would kind of carry on a little bit differently, but he's very young acting to be so old, you know. So to me, that's an indication of people not being grown enough. When you're 7 years old and you're acting like kids, you know, you're behaving like kids, you're teasing people and making fun of people all the time. And, you know, depending on your relationship with people, you have these kind of relationships that are missing, they're lacking. So that's a illustration. And, you know, that has nothing to really do with politics. I guess on the other side would be like, I guess Bill Clinton, you know, all the stuff he was had going on with himself. You know, that's a lack of maturity, because, you know, when you get married and you're growing in your marriage, at some point you have like, I can't do those things. You should be doing that at the beginning. But even if you came into your marriage or your serious relationship faulty, you should want to do better as time progresses. And a lot of people, they're satisfied with themselves, which is a shame, because, you know, satisfaction shouldn't be based on you. It should be based on the other person, whether they're satisfied with the relationship. And too often you'll have people, they're bringing the expectations, but they're not realizing that relationships have expectations on both sides. So that's a problem. You know, you have an approach where it's like, okay, I'm going to be me, I'm going to do me, and I'm getting my bag, leveling up, but it has nothing to do with the other person. It just has to do with yourself. And we hear a lot of these relationship shows, women come in and they're talking about, yeah, I'm getting my bag. And, you know, this guy, he has to make 6 figures. He has to be cute. He has to accept my kids and take care of me and this and that. And so they put out all these qualifications. But on the other side, what is the guy to expect from you? And that's the problem. See, that's where being really grown, you have to ask the tough questions of yourself, not of just other people, but of yourself. And that's what we're missing in this day and age. Jim, so what do you think? Am I off base here?
No. You're not at all. Everybody has their list of demands, what they want other people to do, and what what they're willing to deal with. But people don't self-reflect on what they have to offer, and they don't want to do it. They take the advice, and this is how Derrick Jaxn became popular. They didn't want to take the advice of a conflicting advice with them that conflicts with what they want. It's just, I have this, and this, you have to accept it. Or, what they bring is greater than what they're receiving, which is definitely not true. And they'll try to convince people that they are a benefit when they actually do nothing. And I think that's like the greatest illusion that somebody could really do, is to pretend that they're a benefit when they're not, And it's I won't say it's hard, but everybody wants to be neglectful of their own self, what they bring, how could they improve upon it, or is it sufficient? Is it suitable? And they have to realize that some things that they have may not be suitable. It doesn't mean that they won't get anybody. It's just you won't get your list of demands met. This is worse than a hostage situation. Even with hostage situations, you have to give up some hostages to get something. And people, this is all power negotiations. When one person gets too much in a relationship, that's not a compromise, that's a surrender.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You expect somebody to surrender everything that they have for the nothing that you give, or next to nothing that you give, or that you may give. That is not good. And what mostly everybody is, I won't say realizing, but what they're being, hip to and realizing is that the headaches that you may receive from this other person's, how can I put it? I won't say benefit, but what they're offering may not be necessarily for you. And you know what? It's okay to say no. And you wouldn't have to be bullied by the other person who you may not deem sufficient, into forcing you to accept it. That's another thing. When another person doesn't deem it that's sufficient for them, it doesn't mean you have to bully them and to call them names and stuff like that. That's another problem. People are scared to be insulted, called out, accused of something, just because it doesn't suit them. It's fine, it's fine to say that, this doesn't suit me. People have to accept that. Individuals have to accept that. And that's another side of the story that's not being said. It's whoever talks the loudest and screams out loud and bullies I won't say bully, but be more forceful, gets what they want. And to me, that's not how it should be. But like I say, it's a negotiation, give and take.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was thinking while you were talking, and I wanted to bring up some other things. So also within all of this is how people react. So when they always say, first and foremost, if you want to really know how someone is, disagree with them, have an argument with them, and you'll find out how they really are. And you'll see how mature someone is when there's a disagreement, having a disagreement with them. So you want to see how mature a person is, have your argument with them, have a disagreement with. I don't know why I'm tongue tied over here, but yeah, have a disagreement with them, and then you'll see how they really are. And so I just wanted to talk about that because people seldom realize that that's a level of maturity that sometimes they're lacking. So you argue with someone. How do you argue with someone? Is that grown? Are you speaking like an adult? Are you behaving like a child or a teenager? So you'll often find out who someone is when there's disagreement. Are they triggered by what you said? Do they use profanity? Do they degrade you when they're upset? And that's a maturity. And I always tell people, especially my lady friends, I said, when you meet someone, you want to meet someone that is respectful, not disrespectful, but they have to be respectful of even people they don't like. Because if they're not respectful of those people, guess what? You're going to be on that list as well when they're not happy with you. Because if they can treat a stranger like that, how far are you away from that stranger? How far does it become until someone's flipping out on you? And usually that's not far of a distance from them to you. So that's why I always say, if you are looking for someone, they should always be or if not respectful towards everyone, they should always default back to respect. Even if it sort of goes offhand, they should be able to rectify that after they address it, and then not go back to that place that they came from. And that is a level of maturity that people need to have, because you'd be surprised how many people love to pop off on other people. So am I wrong? What do you think,
No.
Jim?
The fact of confrontation used as a tool to suppress or demean or to get your point across in a non-respectful way is too popular nowadays. It's, you see it on TV. There's too much conflict, no real, I won't say negotiation, but no real respectful conversation about how to resolve a conflict or something like that. And it just seemed like, people just follow that because it's just mostly noticed everywhere. The true art of respectfully negotiating is basically gone among, I won't say it's almost gone among human interaction. And it's whoever could be the loudest, who could be the most right, even though you could be wrong. Whoever aligns with you, especially to help you to pile up on that person you may have a disagreement with. It's about a numbers game, not a respect game. It's a numbers game. So whoever you think you're validated because people agree with you, or people can have a perception of you, but it's totally incorrect, because you have lost the art of doing it, of negotiating or coming or respectfully speaking to someone. So When you're out there in your daily lives, when you don't have your people, when you don't have your backing, when you don't have stuff like that, you get a different outcome. And then once you get that different outcome, you default back to the argumentative attitude and think you're going to have the same outcome as before. No, you're not. Nobody's not going to change their mind no sane person, excuse me. No sane person who has been through conversing and talking with people in a respectful manner is going to come off it. They'll just ignore you. They'll dismiss you. It's like, why waste my time with it? I don't need to give my energy to it. And you may feel like you're being dismissed, and yes, you are being dismissed. I want to say you feel like you are being dismissed, but you have to understand why. Even if your point, and you can have a valid point at times, but you're still being dismissed. Why?
Right.
And it's a lost art. It's a lost art. It is a lost art. I fully agree with what you said with this whole thing. With the whole attitude come from a place of respect. You are allowed to have a reaction. Always remember, you always are allowed to have a reaction. It's what you do afterwards that really counts. Like I said, you could default back to your respectful way, or you can escalate it. But having a reaction is normal. And I should mention it. Having a reaction is normal. You're allowed to have like one, especially if you get something out of left field. You are definitely allowed to have a very animated reaction. But it's what you do with it afterwards, after you had it, the initial shock wears off. And what you do with it that dictates how the conversation goes further. And as a society, we don't default to a word respectability. It's just my opinion is more valid than yours. You may have points, but you have this but. Everything you admit to the person, but there's a but. I don't believe in that when there is an argument. It's either you will believe with their views or you don't. There is no but. And I always tell people, when you argue with me, but it's something you sit on. I'm not accepting that I'm not accepting that for anyone. It's either you agree with what I said is correct or it's not.
Right.
And then you come down with the views on why it's not correct. When I have views, I don't want to hear I feel. That's another thing. I don't want to hear I feel. It has to come from a place where it is, I won't say validated, but where, that it's like, yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. And, this is how, this is what I see, what I observe, stuff like that. And you said based upon those observations, then you could come with I feel that. But you starting off with I feel is kind of like you're dismissing the point sometimes. And, if you want somebody to respect for your opinion, I think you should come from a place where you've seen from experience. And it leads you to that point, which is very much fine because, that's what you've experienced. And we have to be clearer on why we disagree as well. And then, respectfully tell them and stuff like that. But my pet peeve is you can't agree with me, but say but.
Right.
And I think that's the most disrespectful thing you could tell a person.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just wanted to say also, in addition to that, it's communicating how you feel. So maturity is based on how you feel and reacting appropriately to how you feel and communicating that properly and not being afraid to express yourself in a respectful manner to which that you can get your point across and you're being logical in your sentiments and your arguments and not discussing things on a pure emotional level, because it's impossible for us to not feel something, but you can feel a certain way, but you can also respond opposite of how you feel, which means if you're upset, you don't have to respond in an angrily manner. You can collect your thoughts. You can respond logically to whatever the issue is. And as long as you're being logical and respectful and the other person is being logical and respectful and you hearing out each other's grievances, that goes a long way. But the problem is people argue with emotion.
Right.
So once you get into an emotional argument, things go downhill from there. And doesn't usually end up good. That's when saying things, you always hear people say, I didn't mean to say that. And sometimes people don't mean to say things. There's some people when they get upset, they say how they really feel. And then there's some people that when they get upset, they want to say something to hurt someone. So they'll find something, but you can usually tell the difference in the mannerism because there's certain things that are very personal. Then you can tell that's kind of been hitting in them. And then they could say things like, oh, you're a hole or a douchebag or, something like MF or a B or something like that. Those are things that people will say, because they want you to be upset too. But then there's some people that when they're upset, they let things out of the bag. Oh, this is how I really feel about you. And you're a loser or you're a bum, or whatever. And then those are personal attacks. And that's why the point of having a civil discussion, even when you're upset, is important. And then if you can't control yourself, you have to be grown up enough to know this is not the time to talk about something. And if you find yourself not being able to have a disagreement with somebody and be civil, then it's definitely time to get some counseling and find a way to manage your anger, because that's definitely a management anger issue that you have.
I agree.
So okay, you wanted to continue that?
Oh yeah. The communication part, yes. Those type of arguments you give are like the last resort arguments when they don't have a point to prove. And it's like the last word, they just want you to be quiet. So they'll say those hurtful things. And that is not, when you do that, it's not a place of, like we said, it's not a place of maturity or really how you feel. It's just, you're just deflecting and you're just putting it all on the other person and for them to be quiet and things like that. It creates a more of a animosity issue because that's going to be their default whenever you get into an argument. It could be off of something totally unrelated, and then that's the default they go to. And it's not a proper way of conveying what's wrong. Even there has to be some type of concession. Two people cannot win an argument, and you're not going to win an argument by deriding people. When I get into discussions, argument with people, they deride about how I look and stuff like that. You're not going to win. You're not winning anything by you're avoiding the point. You have really nothing to offer afterwards, and then it becomes just a game of insults. And if you have refused to be dragged into that, do not make an argument into a back and forth of insults. It's demeaning to the person that you're talking to, and also the energy that you're giving off. They're going to respond in kind. So it's not really good. I really do agree with that communication part. It's hard for a lot of people to get off of it for some weird reason. It's too much of a pride issue. Somebody says the whole thing of a debate and argument is basically, to me, a debate. When two conflicting views come together to come into play, is to articulate properly what your view is. Why do you feel that way, based upon experience, data, stuff like that, and how how can A, either you come to a compromise, or B, how do you mesh the two arguments, and C, you have to realize when you come to those, when you have these arguments, each person has really a correct point of view. It's not really wrong entirely. It's not really entirely right, but it's a point of view that, has to be considered. When you don't consider another person's point of view, and it can be correct, it becomes to that type of, it devolves into that type of what they call pissing contest or crapping contest. And that's what we're trying to avoid. And that's how a lot of relationships end, on that type of, we had an argument about what? Something trivial, but it de-evolved into something that you don't speak to a person for a day, month, year, or a lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, while you were talking, I was thinking about an episode of Kevin Samuels. and he was talking to this woman, and she was talking about, you know, all these women, they call in and they have these thoughts about this dream guy that they're gonna get. And so he asked her about herself, and then he was like, well, what happened to your husband? And she was like, well, I divorced him. And she was like, and he was like, why? And then she said, because he wasn't working. So he was like, that's petty. He said, think about it. He said, you divorce a man because he wasn't working. So you took the father of your daughters. I think she said she had like 2 daughters. And he said, you took the father of your daughters out the house. So now he can only see them on the weekends and whenever you let him in the house to see them. So he was like, what do you want to do now? He said, you're this age, you're living this lifestyle that's not even a high class to begin with. Now you're saying you want to find a high class guy. Why? Because your husband, who for the most part you said that he was a good guy, he just wasn't working. So he told her that's so petty. He said, that's the worst thing, to leave someone over because the person wasn't working. Because he said, how about this? He said, what are you doing now? And she said, I'm working. And you're paying all the bills by yourself. It was like, so what's the difference? He said, you had your husband there taking care of your kids all the time. If you needed to do something with your life, he was there. So, you know, I mean, I thought about the discussion, and I mean, I guess he could have told her that she could have encouraged him to get a job also. The discussion didn't go that far, because then she became very defensive, and, you know, she wanted to talk bad about the husband, the ex-husband, I should say. So it wasn't like, oh, there was nothing legitimate that she wanted to hear that Kevin told her. She just didn't like the fact that he told her that she was petty for leaving him over the fact that he wasn't working. Because he was like, all right, put it this way. So what if you gain hundreds of pounds while you were married to him? So he should leave you because you got fat? You know, and that's what he tried to explain to her. He said, what if you were in your deathbed? So he should leave you because you're in your deathbed. So, you know, it's just interesting how people view relationships, and, you know, just people in general. I just using that particular topic, but just people, you know, relationships are so minimal in this day and age, where people are like, oh, anything. He said he was coming home at 7 and he came home at 8. I want a divorce. You know, like something, just stuff that people could really work out. But because we live in a world that people say, don't settle, don't settle, don't settle, people think that anytime something goes wrong in their marriage or relationship, that they're settling, that, oh, no, I need more than this. But it's just weird how, you know, you disregard a whole person for a part of them that's flawed. And I think that's messed up, because you, with the same expectation you have, if somebody did that to you, they'd be dumping you for something that you didn't have right about yourself. And that's the part that people don't get. They look at a relationship and they think about, well, I need all this satisfaction, but you forget somebody else needs to be satisfied too. And if they're doing the best that they can to deal with you at your less than best, because no one's 100% perfect, then how could you not give the same in kind? And that's where I talk about maturity. Maturity is understanding that you work out what you can work out, and then you accept the flaws of people that need to be accepted, because everybody's not 100%. Some people, they're never going to be this. They're never going to be that, or it's going to be harder for them to be this, or it's going to be harder for them to be that. Or some people need pushing, some people need encouraging. So people have needs in life to help them along the way. And if they can be help them. But, you know, it should take a all hands on deck effort. It shouldn't be like, oh, well, I wanted him to work and he didn't get a job, so now I'm leaving him because he didn't get a job in 2 years. But what did you tell him in 2 years other than watch and move the needle and be like, unacceptable, 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 until you didn't want to deal with him anymore? So I see so many people do that. They'll watch people implode and they'll let them. And then when they don't want to deal with them anymore, they'll drop them at their lowest point. And I think that's very unfair. When you see somebody going down a dark road, why let that person go down a dark road? Because you don't like it. So if it's just like if you see a woman gaining weight, why would you let her gain weight and not say anything to her? And then she's obese, and then you're like, I don't want to be with her because she's overweight. But you sat there and watched her gain all that weight, didn't encourage her. Maybe you didn't find out what was going on, that the weight was being gained, or, told her, is everything okay? I see you gain weight, or whatever, something, something that would help the person understand what's going on with themselves, because sometimes we don't see the things that's going on in our lives when we're doing them. Sometimes we need a pair of fresh eyes to be like, listen, is everything okay? I noticed you're doing this. I noticed you're doing that. And then you reach out to the person and you try to help them. Now, if the person rejects you, because believe me, I can't say too much in relationships between like people I was involved with romantically, but just in friendship, help has been rejected, or I have friends that reject my help all the time. Like, forget it. They say they want help, and then you try to help them and you try to assist them, and they're basically giving you the finger, telling you, oh, I don't want your help, giving themselves pity parties or whatever the situation is. And I'm like, the old me would have been arguing with people to help them. But the me in 2021 is like, listen, I can help you, but I can only help you as long as you want to help yourself, because there's a lot of people out there who don't want to help themselves. They complain about not having a job. They complain about the bad decisions that they make in life, but they want to throw pity parties for themselves, and they don't want to hold themselves accountable. So I don't know if that's because people need, meds. I don't know if that's because the people, they have a mental or psychological disorder. I don't know if that means that, but at the basic, you should be open to people helping you and take their help and take their advice and at least try it. Forget about, I don't know how people wake up every day and you tell them something and they move the needle and then move it right back. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point about, are we really grown? Because how do you reject help? I don't get that. I don't get that at all. I don't get how you say you need a job or you need to get out this funk that you're in, and people are trying to help you and you're staying in the funk. You're staying without a job. So you can't ask me, oh, do you know anybody hiring, or could you help me find an employment office or some type of HR that might be looking for employment? And then you try to help that person and they check out. They don't respond to you. But how could you help someone that checks out on you? And that's what I'm talking about. Being grown. Are you grown? Are you a child? Is your mentality of an adult? If you're 32 years old, or if you're 40 or 25, how old are you behaving? And that's a point that people really need to see for themselves. You need to, we keep saying, look at this mirror. You need to look in the mirror and see yourself for who you really are. Stop playing. I don't want to say stop playing these games, because I don't think most people are playing games. I just think it's very hard for people to take a hard look at themselves. And I think that's really the issue at hand. I've known people 30 years and they're still on the same trash that they were on 30 years ago. And although some elements of them has matured, they're still operating on that same immaturity that when I met them 30 years ago, or however long ago, decades or 12 years ago, or whatever the situation be, they're still operating on that mentality. I call that High School Musical. And the reason why I call that High School Musical is because if anybody's seen the movie, some of those people were old as hell. In Monique Coleman, I think, was like 25 years old making High School Musical. So that's the point. That's why I call it High School Musical, because they had these grown people playing kids. And that's what we have in society. We have a lot of grown people acting like kids. And people need to grow up and they need to come into themselves. And you can't do that without strict and due examination of self, which is, if you look in the mirror and you see the mirror distorted, you want to understand why the mirror is distorted. If you're struggling at life, if you're making bad decisions, or you're constantly in bad relationships, you got to find out why you're in bad relationships. That is the easy part. The hardest part is making the change. If you're not used to changing, if you're not used to positive change and getting up off the ground, then that's going to take some effort. But identifying something, that's the easiest thing we all can do. I mean, it just takes a minimum effort, maybe talking to a mental health professional, maybe looking in the mirror, maybe having the hard conversation about yourself to yourself or with somebody that you respect. And once you do that, you have to move to the next step. But you can't get to the top of a roof if you stay on the bottom rung of a ladder or don't climb any step to get to the top of a building or take the elevator or whatever it is that you need to do to get to the top. So, that's my point of contention there. I mean, how do you feel I'm off base? Am I right? What do you think?
In terms of that, you said a mouthful there, but yeah, it's you have to take a long look in the mirror, unfortunately. And unfortunately, you may have to take a look at the people that you're seeking advice from, your friends who you roll with. You may have to evaluate that more. It's hurtful, yeah. It's difficult, yeah. You're familiar, you're comfortable with them, but are they really getting in your best interest? Are they enabling you to do something wrong? Are they themselves trapped in that same trap as you? Everybody, likes, familiarity, their friends, their associations with people, things like that. But it says maybe it's about time you step out of your zone. People do not like stepping out of their comfort zone. Everybody's comfortable the way they are. Everything's too tough. Life's too hard. I don't want to adult today. I don't want, you get your moments. But the point is with those moments is that's what they are. You're not supposed to stay in them.
Right.
And that's what is the problem with the whole High School Musical. They go back to that moment where they felt that they were invincible. They're free. They could do whatever they want. The world evolved around them. It did not. Your four corners evolved around you. The world still keeps going without you. And that's a part of the problem. You can't control that part animorebecause
Correct.
the world goes on without you. If you stay home, the world goes on without you.
Yeah.
You still work, your family still work, the kids still go to school. It continues on. So when you get into that moment, you're allowed to, but you're gonna have to step out of it. And people don't want to step out of it. I don't know. They feel like people have to come to them. They feel like, they should be approached. You have to get off of that too. You have to be able to, if you feel comfortable with people, you have to be able to go and approach them and talk to them. If you feel like you can't approach and talk to them, they're not really your friends or a person you should be associated with. I don't care how you judge me. If
It's true.
So you really gotta rethink about that, about your set. I thank the Lord that I have Jonathan in my life for go back to 40 Acres to Blacks. I know a lot of people, who I was very fortunate later in life, at my job, stuff like that. They're more than friends. Especially at my job, they're more than friends. They're practically family, and I can freely express what's going on, and they can do the same to me without fear of judgment or reprisals. If you have that in your life, please, people, reevaluate.
Yes. I want to rewind back to what you said about that circle, that sect, because that is probably the most biggest thing that is going to be a help or a detriment to your life and your success. Because I always say most people who are around us may not cheer on your downfall, but they're also indifferent to it. Your failure is not going to hurt them. So you have a lot of people, you could fall apart and they'll be like, I hope things get better for you. But the minute they finish that sentence, they're not losing sleep, that you're losing sleep. Mm-hmm. And it's very important that you be able to identify that most people don't, even though it seems that way, the average person doesn't have your best interest in mind. And then when you find people who do, when you find the people that are like, oh man, I was worried about you. I thought about you all weekend, or how's everything? Or they check up on you because they know that you're going through a lot. Is there anything I could do for you? Like Jim said, Jim definitely is a person that I could say I could talk to him and get the truth. You know, this is the whole point of this show. The truth is still straight. I bring people on here, have co-hosts that are willing to tell you the truth, not BS, not foo magoo trash, no Derrick Jaxn garbage because they're trying to sell a book. The real truth, not just about what they believe, about what they're going through. You've heard Jim on this show. You've heard LaDonna Marie, Danica Nicole Worthy, Donnie, and Dawn sit up here and tell you some, and myself, some real freaking truth about what's going on in the world, their lives, their past, how they feel right now. So that circle, man, you gotta fix that circle if the circle is lacking. And you got to pay attention. Watch who the people who encourage you when you're doing wrong, and watch who the people are to encourage you to stop doing wrong. And I look at people like Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and people like that have been going through a lot, and people sort of stood out the way and let them go through what they needed to go through. How did Whitney Houston end up overdosing? How did she get to that point? Where were all these people when the first whatever drug she took to the last one? Where were all these people? Where was the Prince people when Prince was, going through what he was going through and taking these pills that ultimately led to an overdose or whatever where were those people? How did he overdose? How did Michael Jackson go through what he went through? Forget about plastic surgery. We're going to talk about those people, Little Kim and people like that just blow their face up. Like, how do you let people let you fall apart? I don't get that. Like, you see all of these people that a friend of mine the other day was talking about getting some lipo. I was like, hell, hold on, lady. You're fine how you are. Stop it. Stop it. But you got people like, yeah, get that lipo, get that butt injection, get that. I've had a friend of mine tell me that she wanted to get butt injections. I'm like, butt injections for what? So you want a man to like you for your butt, but not for you. Now, yes, a nice butt is great to look at, but if that's what you want to get a man, girl, you are barking up the wrong tree, because then what are you going to do next? So when you start getting old, what you going to do then? So, this always, yeah, of course, being attractive is important, but you want somebody to push through all the layers of what you have and what you don't have and like you for who you really are. So you can be beautiful. Maybe your butt is not big and maybe you don't have big breasts or whatever, but you're beautiful to someone, and that someone takes a really big interest in who you are, despite you not having no big buns or big boobs or whatever you think men are attracted to. But if you're trying to get noticed by getting butt and breasts, who are you looking for then? And then when it doesn't work out for you, who's to blame other than yourself? Because those are the people you wanted to let in your life. So you got to be mindful of that when you're meeting people, what it is, who's around you, who's offering you advice, who's letting you fall apart. Because there's some of us that are falling apart, and our crews are letting us fall apart. They're not picking up the nuts and bolts that's falling off of us and helping us screw them back in. So you really want to be mindful of that. And I don't want to take it too much to church, because I really want to end this show on that, kind of break it down, let Jim kind of break it down, and then finish on that, because I think what Jim just spoke about is where I want to leave this episode on. So go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Don't be afraid to be selective with your group. And, if they really do care, they will understand. And that's the main point. If you feel a certain way, they really do care about you, they will understand. Yes, they'll hurtful. Yes, yes, they'll react to it. Yes, it's something to be expected. But a true person will, come back, after they get out of their feelings, and it's normal human behavior. And we have to realize that, we have pushed back or extended the goalpost on what normal is.
Yes.
And we have to reel it in. We have to reel that in. And once we realize we have to rein in some of these things that we consider normal, I think, it'll create uncomfortable conversation, but at least you know where you stand. And secondly, Don't be afraid to feel that your circle might feel the same way about you also. This not a personal attack, maybe jumping on you, but they may come to you with something that they may feel slighted, and if they're valid about it, hear them out. Like I say, the person who always agree with you is not always your friend, and you should take that to heart. Not if a person who agrees with what you're doing all the time, something's wrong.
Yes.
And to me, you should take that at least to mind when there's someone that agrees with you or enables you or something like that, because there is something wrong. And it may be unintentional or intentional, and that's the whole point. It could be one of those things, but something's wrong. And, you have to reflect upon how it is. And, is it really something that, if the person doesn't know themselves, you may end up helping them at the same time. So it's tough. It's tough, especially if you're familiar with them. It's hard, it's tough, it's difficult, but this is for you to reflect and look at your life and, see it under a different lens. And it's also for your friends too, to realize, that they may be a benefit or a drain on someone, and they might not even know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I just wanted to insert a thought that I had while you were talking, because it reminds me when you're talking about people who agree with you. And it reminded me of the movie Mr. 3000 with Bernie Mac, that he had I want to say it was a catcher. I forget. I think it was. And he was like, he followed him. He wasn't really his friend, but Bernie Mac's character kind of brought him along for the ride, and he would always tell him something like, "Yeah, whatever you think," something like that. I can't remember the exact phrase that it was, but it was basically like he didn't really tell him that he disagreed with him, and he basically was just telling him, "Yeah, whatever," but in a way that it sounded like he agreed with him. And it just reminds me of that, because the dude was around, but he wasn't quite his friend. And that's the truth. People, they're often around for you for their own reasons. And if you have value, they'll milk you of those values. And that's a problem in the world today, that we have so many people that are around us to use our energy, our resources that we have to offer them as friends. And we have to be very mindful of that when we're dealing with people. So I thought that was very important that you brought that up, because enablers are the worst type of friends to have, because that's going back to the whole Whitney Houston thing. I'm sure she had a lot of enablers, probably had people who brought her the drugs, you know what I mean? And that's very harsh, because, you look at people like Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, who had lots of people around them. And how did they die? Alone, overdosed. And that's scary. Whitney Houston died in a tub. And how was she able to die in a tub? Where were all her friends up to that point? How about Michael Jackson, that he was taking, all these type of sleep aids that were dangerous and that ultimately killed him? So how does someone get to that point where no one's there to kind of put the kibosh in it and be like, oh, Michael, Whitney, or whoever, little Kim, come on, that's just too much. Stop. You need help. Where are those people? You got to be mindful of people who just won't say anything, speak up against anything that you do. And if you have friends that just agree with you all the time, man, those are not friends. I'm sorry to tell you, because nobody's right 100% of the times. Jim has called me out. My friend Lee called me out. So, those are real friends, people who call you out, or, family too, there's my sister V, she's a friend, you know what I'm saying? She's a real, keeping it real. Listen, no. This is this, that. That's what you need. You need, friend don't just have to be friends, if family too, because you can have family and they could be your friends too, and then you get that family that's not your friend at all. And those are some, and you got to be even more wary of family friends, because those be the ones that I tell you jump off the cliff. So you got to think of those people. You got to think of your friends, just your friends out in the world. Then you got to think of your family friends, meaning brothers and sisters, cousins and stuff like that, that, you know, sometimes they carry a little bit more water because they're related to you and they know a lot more about you than like everyday people.
Right.
But you got to be, because I've found a lot of families, they're not cheering people's success. They're not. You have a lot of, I've had plenty of family members that told me I was going to be nobody, that I wasn't going to make it in life, that I wasn't going to be this, I wasn't going to be that. Told me to my face, not even behind my back. It told me to my face, you're not going to be anything. You're not going to be successful at anything. I've had people tell me that in my family, siblings, parental people. So that goes to show you, you know, not everybody just has your, everybody cares about your best interests. It's very scary. It's a scary world that we live in. So you got to be mindful of that. And, you know, that's pretty much it, really. You know, I think this is a great topic. And, you know, I want to grow on this conversation. And I think it's important. Maybe we need to keep hovering around these topics until people kind of get the point, you know, because it's a work in progress. And I know there's some people that's definitely listening to this show and inspired. So we got to get the action. There's the inspiration is there already. We just need the action to go along with the inspiration. So that's really what it is. We're planting the seed. Now we just got to get that water and that sun on it so we can get photosynthesis and all of that. And so we can grow. So I'm going to end my portion there. I'm going to let Jim close out and then we're closing out this episode. All right.
I hope, you know, people get a few tidbits, you know, to come away with something positive from this. We're not trying to demean or, you know, trying to saying having friends is a bad idea, but, you know, just be careful, be selective, you know, always give everyone an equal chance. But, you know, when you feel something's lacking, don't be afraid to speak up. And, you know, a real person will be there for you regardless if they benefit from you or not. It's, you know, as I said, you know, it's always a pick me up. You pick me up, I pick you up. You know, I fall down, you fall down. You know, it's always at different times and different aspects in life. You never expect these things. There's always the reaction, and you know, just look for the reaction, and also see within yourself if you're reacting correctly to others as well. And you know, be the energy that you give out is the energy you want to receive. Just don't be receiving the energy that you want and you're giving out garbage. So look at yourself also to make sure that you're giving out what you're taking in. You can't be an emotional vampire. You can't be a resource vampire. You can't just keep taking, you know. You have to make sure that in the end that you are giving out what you're giving and reciprocating that appreciation for others. You know, it goes a long way. A small gesture doesn't have to be grand. A small gesture, it goes a long way with people because, you know, it shows that you're paying attention.
Yeah, I like what you said there. So I'm not going to say much after that. I'm going to definitely close it out. Thank you for watching and listening. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening on Anchor, I appreciate the support. And this is from the whole cast of The Truth is Still Straight. Myself, Jonathan St. James, along with LaDonna Marie and Danica, as well as Dawn, Donnie, and of course, Jim, who's holding it down tonight. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.